A new babushka in town. The bus wheezed to a halt, its brakes sighing like a disappointed grandfather. Elena Petrovna, her bones singing a chorus of protest, unfolded herself from the cramped seat. Harmony Creek. The name promised peace, a balm to soothe the ache of leaving everything familiar behind. Two bright faces bobbed in the small crowd, her grandchildren, Leo and Maya. Leo, all elbows and knees, shot forward, grabbing her worn carpetbag. Maya, ever the careful one, offered a shy hug. Baba! You made it! Of course I made it, Solnishko. Elena chuckled, smoothing Maya's dark hair. Did you think an old woman like me could be defeated by a bus ride? The air smelled of pine and something vaguely sweet, like baking bread. Elena inhaled deeply, trying to absorb the newness. Her daughter, Irina, was waiting in the car, its engine purring with impatience. The next day, Elena decided to tackle the grocery store. Irina had left a list, written in careful English, but the reality of the place was overwhelming. A kaleidoscope of colors assaulted her eyes, rows upon rows of brightly packaged goods, none of which looked quite like the simple ingredients she was used to. The fluorescent lights hummed, amplifying the feeling of disorientation. She located the milk, surprised by the sheer variety. Skim 2% whole chocolate. Back home, there was just milk. Period. She chose one with a cow on the carton, hoping for the best. Finding the right kind of cabbage for her borscht proved even more challenging. Giant green heads sat piled high, looking more like oversized ornaments than food. She picked one, feeling its weight in her hands, and then froze, realizing she had no idea how to weigh it. A young woman with bright red lipstick and a name tag that read Brenda watched her with thinly veiled amusement. Need some help, ma'am? She asked, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt artificial. Elena, flustered, simply shook her head and moved on, abandoning the cabbage. It wasn't just the grocery store. Walking down Main Street later that afternoon, she felt eyes on her. Heads turned, whispers followed. She clutched her purse tighter, her babushka suddenly feeling like a beacon, advertising her otherness. Children pointed. Mothers hushed them, pulling them closer. A group of teenagers snickered, their words lost to the wind, but their meaning clear. She saw a bench in front of the hardware store and gratefully sank onto it, her legs trembling. The late afternoon sun warmed her face, but it couldn't thaw the chill that had settled in her heart. This Harmony Creek, it wasn't quite the haven she had imagined. It felt more like a creek of whispers and stares, and she, a strange stone dropped into its waters, disrupting the smooth flow. The grumpy grocer. The bell above the door of Grumbly's general store jingled, a tinny, unwelcome sound that seemed to grate on the already sour atmosphere. Mrs. Petrova stepped inside, the familiar scent of dried herbs and dust filling her nostrils. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the grime-coated windows, casting the narrow aisles in a perpetual twilight. Mr. Grumbly stood behind the counter, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by years of discontent. He didn't acknowledge her arrival, continuing to meticulously polish a particularly dull penny with a rag that looked older than she was. "Good morning, Mr. Grumbly," Mrs. Petrova said softly, her voice barely audible above the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. He grunted, his eyes not leaving the penny. "Well?" She hesitated, clutching her worn shopping list. "I need flour, some sugar, and yes, the small jar of dill pickles." Mr. Grumbly finally looked up, his gaze lingering on her threadbare coat. "Flour's on aisle 2. Sugar's next to it. Pickles are by the counter, if you can find 'em." He returned to his penny polishing. Mrs. Petrova navigated the cluttered aisles, her steps slow and deliberate. The flour bin was almost empty, the sugar canister coated in a sticky residue. She gathered her items, feeling a familiar ache in her lower back. Back at the counter, Mr. Grumbly snatched her purchases, his movements jerky and impatient. He rang up the items with a speed that bordered on aggression, the ancient cash register clanging like a rusty gate. "That'll be $3.47, he announced, his voice devoid of any warmth. Mrs. Petrova opened her coin purse, her fingers fumbling with the worn leather. She counted out the coins carefully, placing them one by one on the counter. Mr. Grumbly scowled. "Hurry it up, lady. I ain't got all day." She added the last nickel, her hand trembling slightly. I think that is all." He glared at the pile of coins. "Nope. That's $3.40. Pickles are 40 cents extra today. Special import, you know." Mrs. Petrova's brow furrowed. "But they are always 35 cents. I bought them last week." "Price went up," he snapped, his gaze unwavering. "Take it or leave it." Mrs. Petrova felt a flush creep up her neck. She knew he was lying. She'd seen him mark up prices for newcomers before. It was a petty cruelty, but it stung nonetheless. She rummaged in her purse again, finding a few more pennies tucked away in a hidden compartment. She placed them on the counter, her heart sinking. "Thank you," she whispered, taking her bag of groceries. Mr. Grumbly didn't respond, already turning his attention to the next customer, a young man with a confident air and a crisp dollar bill in his hand. As Mrs. Petrova stepped back out into the sunshine, the bell jingling mockingly above her head, she felt a profound sense of discouragement. It wasn't just the extra nickel. It was the way he looked at her, the way he spoke, the casual disregard for her dignity. It was a small thing, perhaps, but it left a bitter taste in her mouth, a taste she knew would linger long after the dill pickles were gone. Lily's discovery. The park buzzed with the late afternoon energy of children released from school. Lily, perched on a swing, kicked her legs, a rhythm against the backdrop of shrieks and laughter. She'd snuck out with a Ziploc baggie of her grandmother's famous chocolate chip cookies, determined to find someone to share them with. Her gaze landed on an elderly woman sitting on a nearby bench, a splash of vibrant floral scarf against her simple gray dress. The woman was feeding pigeons, her movements gentle and deliberate. Lily hopped off the swing, cookies clutched in her hand. "Hello?" she chirped, approaching the bench. "My name is Lily, and I have cookies." The woman looked up, her eyes crinkling at the corners. A warm smile bloomed on her face. "Ah, hello, Lily. I am Elena Petrova. And I love cookies." Lily grinned, offering the baggie. Mrs. Petrova took one, nibbling at it delicately. "These are wonderful, like sunshine in my mouth." She had a slight accent that Lily found fascinating. Over the next hour, Lily and Mrs. Petrova shared cookies and stories. Mrs. Petrova told Lily about her homeland, a place of snow-capped mountains and fields of sunflowers. She described the smell of baking bread in her grandmother's kitchen and the sound of balalaikas playing in the town square. Lily listened, captivated, her imagination painting vivid pictures of a world she had never seen. The next day, Lily accompanied her mother to Grumbly's general store. She spotted Mrs. Petrova near the vegetable aisle, carefully examining a head of lettuce. Mr. Grumbly, his face like a thundercloud, stood behind the counter. "Hurry it up, Elena," he barked, his voice raspy. "Don't have all day to wait for you to decide if that lettuce is worthy of your royal taste buds. Other customers are waiting." Mrs. Petrova's shoulders slumped. She placed the lettuce in her basket without a word and shuffled towards the counter. Lily felt a surge of anger. Mr. Grumbly had no right to speak to her friend like that. That evening, at the dinner table, Lily recounted the scene to her parents. "Mr. Grumbly was being so mean to Mrs. Petrova. He was yelling at her for no reason." Her father chuckled, patting her hand. "Now, Lilybug, Mr. Grumbly is just a grumpy old man. Don't take it to heart." "But it wasn't fair," Lily insisted, her voice rising. "She didn't do anything wrong." Her mother sighed, stirring her mashed potatoes. "Honey, some people are just like that. You can't change them. Just be nice to Mrs. Petrova, and don't worry about Mr. Grumbly." Lily stared at her plate, the mashed potatoes suddenly unappetizing. They didn't understand. It wasn't just about Mr. Grumbly being grumpy. It was about him being cruel and unfair to someone who was nothing but kind. A seed of defiance sprouted within her. She wouldn't let Mr. Grumbly's behavior go unchallenged. She just needed to figure out how to make her voice heard. The man in black arrives. The church bell chimed, not its usual mournful peal, but a rapid, joyous clang, bouncing off the dusty clapboard of the general store and scattering the hens pecking in the town square. Martha clutched her chest, nearly dropping the armful of wilting zinnias she was carrying home from Mrs. Gable's garden. Ezra emerged from his blacksmith's shop, wiping soot from his brow with a rag, his eyes narrowed against the sudden commotion. "What in tarnation?" he muttered. Then, Sheriff Brody's voice boomed from the loudspeaker mounted on the courthouse roof, crackling with static. "Attention, Harmony Creek! Attention! I repeat, Johnny Cash will be arriving in Harmony Creek this afternoon. He's here to play a benefit concert for Mrs. Petrova. Let's show him some Harmony Creek hospitality." A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Johnny Cash? Here? For Mrs. Petrova? It was almost too much to comprehend. The announcement sent Harmony Creek into a frenzy of activity. Women scurried to bake pies and cakes, their kitchens filled with the sweet scent of cinnamon and apples. Men hammered together a makeshift stage in the town square, Sawyer's boys wrestling over who got to hold the level. Even the teenagers, usually sullen and bored, were swept up in the excitement, volunteering to string up bunting and sweep the dirt roads. A palpable energy thrummed through the town, chasing away the usual air of quiet resignation. By late afternoon, the square was transformed. Colorful quilts were spread on the grass, picnic baskets overflowed with food, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Children chased each other, their laughter echoing against the backdrop of hand-painted welcome signs. A black car, long and gleaming, finally appeared on the horizon, kicking up a cloud of dust as it approached. A hush fell over the crowd. The car pulled to a stop in front of the courthouse, and a figure emerged. He was taller than Martha imagined, dressed in his signature black suit, his face etched with lines that spoke of a life fully lived. A guitar case rested in his hand. Sheriff Brody, looking uncharacteristically flustered, rushed forward to greet him. "Mr. Cash! Welcome to Harmony Creek! We are truly honored to have you." Johnny Cash nodded, his gaze sweeping over the assembled townspeople. "Glad to be here, Sheriff. Heard Mrs. Petrova needed some help." His voice, deep and resonant, carried across the square. He extended a hand to Brody, then turned to the crowd, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Let's make some music. An act of kindness." The afternoon sun beat down on Main Street, turning the asphalt shimmering. Johnny Cash squinted, adjusting his gaze to the scene unfolding near the Piggly Wiggly. Baba Elena Petrova, her back curved like a willow branch, struggled with 2 overflowing bags of groceries. Cans clinked precariously, threatening to spill onto the pavement. Mr. Grumbly, his face a road map of wrinkles and disapproval, stood beside her, arms crossed, a single, miserly brown paper bag clutched to his chest. Johnny heard snippets of their exchange carried on the breeze. "Mr. Grumbly, please, just a moment. My hands, they are." Her voice, usually a warm alto, was strained. "Can't stand around all day, Mrs. Petrova." "Got things to do," Grumbly snapped, adjusting his grip on his single bag as if it contained Fort Knox. He gave her a curt nod, his eyes devoid of sympathy, and started to shuffle away. Johnny's jaw tightened. He quickened his pace, his boots thudding softly on the sidewalk. "Mr. Grumbly," he called out, his voice carrying a gentle authority that made the old man pause. "Sir, perhaps you could lend a hand? Looks like Mrs. Petrova could use a little help." Grumbly huffed, turning a shade of puce. "Mind your own business, Cash. Some folks need to learn self-reliance." He spat the words like bitter seeds. Johnny ignored him, turning his attention to Mrs. Petrova. "Here, let me get those for you, ma'am." He reached for the heavy bags, the paper crinkling under his touch. They were heavier than they looked. Potatoes, judging by the feel, and plenty of canned goods. Enough to feed a small army. "Oh, Mr. Cash," she said, her eyes welling with gratitude. "You are too kind." Mr. Grumbly, he was being Mr. Grumbly. Johnny finished for her, a hint of amusement in his voice. He hoisted one bag over his shoulder, the weight settling comfortably. Where are you headed, Mrs. Petrova? Just a few blocks. The little blue house on Willow Creek. As they walked, the sun glinting off the nearby creek, Mrs. Petrova told him about her garden, struggling under the late summer heat, and her grandson, serving overseas. Her words were punctuated by small, weary sighs. She worried about him, about the world, about the rising cost of everything. It gets harder each year, Mr. Cash, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Sometimes I feel so alone. Johnny listened, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. He didn't offer platitudes or empty promises. He simply walked beside her, a silent presence, a sturdy oak in the face of her storm. When they reached her small, paint-peeled house, he set the bags down gently on her porch. Thank you, Mr. Cash. You are a good man. She reached out, her hand, gnarled with age and work, touching his arm. A true kindness. He smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through him. Just doing what's right, Mrs. Petrova. And you are never alone. This town, for all its flaws, has a good heart. Don't you forget that. He tipped his hat and turned to leave, the image of her frail frame etched in his mind. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that this wouldn't be the last act of kindness he'd be called upon to perform. A word of truth. The bell above the door of Grumbly's general store jingled, a rusty protest against intrusion. Johnny Cash stepped inside, the scent of dust, oiled leather, and something vaguely sour filling his nostrils. Mr. Grumbly, perched on a stool behind the counter like a particularly grumpy gargoyle, didn't even bother to look up from his ledger. Mornin', Mr. Grumbly, Johnny said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the very shelves stocked with canned goods and farm supplies. Grumbly grunted, a sound that could have meant anything from acknowledgement to indigestion. What do you want, Cash? Ain't got all day. Johnny walked to the counter, leaning his elbows on the worn wood. Just a word, Mr. Grumbly. A word about how you treat folks. Grumbly finally looked up, his eyes, magnified by thick spectacles, narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Johnny continued, his voice calm but firm, that kindness don't cost a thing. Yet you seem mighty stingy with it these days. Especially towards Mrs. Stanislava. The old man sputtered. That foreigner? She don't speak the language, she haggles over every penny. She's trying to make a life here, just like your grandpappy did when he first stepped off the boat. Johnny interrupted, his gaze unwavering. And haggling? That's just good sense. You charge enough as it is, Silas, and you know it. Grumbly's face flushed, the wrinkles around his mouth deepening. He shifted uncomfortably on his stool, his gaze darting around the store, avoiding Johnny's direct stare. It's my store, I'll run it how I see fit. Sure, it's your store, Johnny conceded. But it's still part of this community. And this community is supposed to be about looking out for each other, lending a hand. Not sneering at those who are a little different, or a little down on their luck. The silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. Johnny didn't say another word, just held Grumbly's gaze, letting the weight of his words sink in. Finally Grumbly sighed, the sound like air leaking from a punctured tire. He looked down at his hands, gnarled and spotted with age, and a flicker of something that might have been shame crossed his face. I didn't mean no harm. Johnny softened his tone slightly. Harm's done, Silas. But it ain't too late to make things right. A little respect, a little understanding, it goes a long way. He paused, then added, we all need a little grace, now and then. Grumbly didn't respond, but the set of his shoulders seemed a little less rigid. He fiddled with a pencil on the counter, his gaze fixed on the tip. Johnny straightened up, a small nod his only farewell. As he turned to leave, he heard Grumbly mutter something under his breath. Maybe you're right, Cash. The bell jingled again as Johnny stepped back out into the sunshine, leaving Mr. Grumbly alone with his ledger and his conscience. The concert and a dedication. The opening chords of Folsom Prison Blues ripped through the evening air, electrifying the crowd gathered on the town square. Fairy lights strung between the buildings cast a warm glow on the expectant faces, a stark contrast to the chill that still lingered in the October air. Baba Elena Petrova, her shoulders aching from the weight of 2 overstuffed grocery bags, paused at the edge of the throng. The music, usually a source of comfort, felt jarring tonight. Her back throbbed, her feet ached, and the whispers she'd overheard at the market still stung. Up on the makeshift stage, Johnny Cash, silhouetted against the bright lights, launched into the second verse. He was a powerful figure, his voice resonating with a raw honesty that seemed to cut through the town's usual polite facades. Elena clutched her bags tighter, suddenly self-conscious. She felt like an outsider, a dark shape against the backdrop of small-town contentment. Mr. Silas Grumbly stood a little ways away, arms crossed, his face a mask of disapproval. He tapped his foot impatiently, his gaze darting around as if searching for an escape. The music probably cost him a donation, Elena thought with a flicker of amusement, and he probably hated every minute of it. The song ended to thunderous applause, and Cash stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. "We're here tonight for a good cause," he said, his voice low and sincere. "To help our neighbors, and to build a stronger community." He paused, and his gaze swept over the crowd, lingering for a moment on Elena. "I want to dedicate the next song to someone special, someone who embodies the true spirit of this town, even if some folks haven't quite realized it yet." A hush fell over the crowd. Elena felt a blush creep up her neck. Surely, he wasn't talking about her? "This one's for Mrs. Petrova," Cash announced, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "It's about understanding, about acceptance, and about seeing the good in everyone, no matter where they come from or what they believe." He strummed the opening chords of Man in Black. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't believe it. Johnny Cash singing for her? As the song unfolded, the lyrics washing over the crowd, she noticed a shift in the atmosphere. People were listening, really listening. Some nodded thoughtfully, others exchanged glances. Even Mr. Grumbly seemed to squirm, his usual scowl replaced with a flicker of discomfort. He shuffled his feet and tugged at his collar. Cash sang of empathy, of walking in another man's shoes, of the importance of looking beyond appearances. Elena felt tears welling in her eyes. It was more than just a song, it was a message, a plea for understanding. She felt a warmth spread through her, chasing away the chill and the loneliness. When the song ended, the applause was deafening. Cash simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the emotions that filled the square. He didn't need to say anything more. The music had spoken for him, for Elena, and for the possibility of a more accepting future. Mr. Grumbly, however, mumbled something unintelligible and pushed his way through the crowd, disappearing into the shadows. A change of heart. Lily Mae Thompson bounced into Millie's diner, practically vibrating with energy. "Millie! I need a cake. A big one. Something welcoming. Something blueberry?" Millie, wiping her hands on her apron, raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Blueberry in October, Lily Mae? Seems a little summery." "Exactly. A little sunshine to chase away the shadows," Lily declared, grabbing a napkin and sketching furiously. "And I need your famous potato salad. And maybe those deviled eggs everyone raves about." Millie finally cracked a smile. "Sounds like someone's planning a party. The best welcome party this town has ever seen," Lily announced, her voice carrying through the diner. Several heads turned. For Mrs. Petrova. A moment of silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken opinions. Then, old man Hemlock, perched on his usual stool, grumbled, "That foreigner?" Lily's smile didn't falter. "She's our neighbor, Mr. Hemlock. And Johnny Cash wouldn't stand for this kind of talk." She remembered the singer's words, echoing with conviction. "We're all just people trying to make our way." That seemed to give some pause. Martha, from the hardware store, piped up, "I could bring my apple pie. It's a blue ribbon winner, you know." Soon the diner buzzed with offers. Someone volunteered to string up fairy lights in the town square. Another offered a banjo player. Even Mr. Hemlock mumbled something about lending his folding chairs. Lily felt a surge of warmth. The man in black was right. Sometimes, all it took was a little nudge. By dusk, the town square was transformed. Lanterns cast a warm glow on the gathering crowd. The air smelled of apple pie, potato salad, and Millie's blueberry masterpiece. Lily, her heart pounding, scanned the edge of the crowd, hoping Mrs. Petrova would come. Then she saw her. Mrs. Petrova stood hesitantly at the edge of the square, her face etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Lily rushed to her, taking her hand. "Mrs. Petrova, welcome. We're so glad you're here." Baba Elena Petrova's eyes widened, darting from the smiling faces to the laden tables. She clutched a worn shawl tighter around her shoulders, her knuckles white. "For me?" she whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. "For you," Lily affirmed, gently guiding her into the heart of the party. The banjo player struck up a lively tune, and people began to gather around, offering plates of food and shy smiles. Mrs. Petrova, initially overwhelmed, slowly began to relax. A child offered her a hand-picked bouquet of wildflowers. Martha pressed a slice of apple pie into her hand. Mr. Hemlock, surprisingly, offered her his chair. As Mrs. Petrova tasted the pie, a single tear traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness, Lily realized, but of something akin to relief, of belonging. The music swelled, and for the first time since arriving in Harmony Creek, Baba Elena Petrova felt a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found a place to call home. Harmony Creek, at last. The mingled scents of lilac and baking sugar drifted from Lily Mae Thompson's porch, a fragrant veil embracing the evening. Fairy lights, strung with haphazard artistry, pulsed with a warm, firefly-like glow. Harmony Creek, true to its name, exuded a palpable sense of peace. Baba Elena Petrova lingered at the edge of the gathering, her floral-printed dress a splash of color against the twilight, her hands clasped tightly. The chorus of voices, a guitar's gentle chords, spontaneous bursts of laughter, it was almost overwhelming. Too much light, too much sound, too kind. After years spent guarding against animosity, such genuine warmth felt disorienting. Then she noticed him. Silas Grumbly, his face a mottled purple, stood stiffly beside the porch swing. He shuffled, cleared his throat, and edged tentatively in her direction. Elena's pulse quickened. Was this it? The inevitable withdrawal of goodwill, the cutting remark, the icy demeanor? She steeled herself. She'd endured it all before. He halted before her, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Mrs. Petrova," he mumbled, his voice a low rumble lost in the music. I owe you an apology." Elena's surprise was complete. This was unexpected, after his vehement objections at the town meeting, after the glares he'd aimed her way at the general store. He continued, still avoiding eye contact. "I was wrong. About everything. About judging you before knowing you. About being a pig-headed old fool." He finally lifted his head, his eyes reflecting an unexpected vulnerability. "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." A wave of compassion washed over Elena. She saw not malice, but a profound regret. "Mr. Grumbly," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Your apology is accepted. It takes considerable strength to admit error." A trace of relief flickered across his face. "Thank you, Mrs. Petrova." He hesitated, then added, almost as an afterthought, "Those cookies do smell tempting." With that, he turned and receded into the shadows of the porch, leaving Elena feeling a burden had lifted from her shoulders. He might not be ready to celebrate, but he was no longer actively trying to sabotage the festivities. The music surged, and Lily Mae, spotting Elena standing alone, rushed over, her face radiant with sincere delight. "Baba Elena! Come join us. We're decorating gingerbread men." She clasped Elena's hand and gently guided her towards a table overflowing with frosting tubes, iridescent sprinkles, and tiny candy eyes. Before long, Elena was laughing alongside Lily Mae and several other women, her initial trepidation dissolving like sponge sugar. She adorned a gingerbread man with intricate floral designs, her fingers moving with surprising grace. Later, she found herself in Lily May's sun-drenched kitchen, the air saturated with vanilla and cinnamon. Lily May, humming a sprightly melody, demonstrated her renowned sugar cookie recipe. Elena, drawing upon memories of her own grandmother's recipes from the homeland, shared a few refinements, which Lily May embraced with enthusiasm. As Elena kneaded the dough, enveloped by the kitchen's warmth and the comfortable presence of her newfound friend, a powerful realization dawned. This was it. This was belonging. Harmony Creek wasn't merely a location, it was a state of being. A sense of acceptance, of connection, of finally finding her place. Mr. Grumbly stood at the periphery of the lawn, a silent observer, before abruptly pivoting and disappearing into the deepening twilight.